All right, I'll try to simplify it as much as I can. They did a lot of things well, and we didn't do very many things well at all. And just, we played poorly, I thought, in a lot of different ways, as shooters, as passers, as decision makers, a lot of facets. And so sometimes it's like that. This was the first SEC game for a couple of guys on our team that play heavy minutes. So welcome to the SEC. But we also have a lot of experienced guys that also didn't play great. So some of it, I don't want to take anything away from them. They played well. They did. And as you get a combination of one team playing well and one team not playing well, you're going to get a wide spread. And that's what it turned out to be. So they have a good team. They played really hard. They competed. They were tough. They attacked the rim. And then we at some point just didn't have the fight.
David?
Lamont, you said at the Presbyterian game, maybe guys were looking a little forward to SEC play. Is there one reason why you think they came out so, I guess, poorly today?
No, I don't know. We didn't play well. I looked at our game last year at Mississippi State. The opener was at our place, and we were atrocious. We were atrocious offensively, stagnant, just made enough plays, but we also went into halftime with a lead because we defended on a consistent basis, on a reliable basis, and we're still learning how to do that. So, and then we got out of it, and then defensively we weren't doing what we needed to do, and then that also one end affected the other end, unfortunately today. But I don't know why it was a bad start. We just didn't have it. If Colin struggles like that, it's a real struggle. He's a good player. It was a real struggle. I don't know. If you ask Chris Jans if they changed dramatically what they did against him last year when he played really well in here. He had a poor game. So, amongst others, we had some other guys too.
Al?
Nick and Zach were in here starting to go saying they feel like you guys weren't aggressive enough. They got out-toughed a little bit. Would you agree with that assessment for your team, and how do you fix that?
Yeah, I would. Well, part of it, you play another game. Like, we've played 14 games now. There's a group of teams that we've played that, including, I think Clemson mentioned that we were more physical and like, so I think you just do it at the end of the day. Like, I think by nature they're a more aggressive group of individuals than our guys are. But we need to match that aggression with resistance. And today we didn't. We've done it before, but today we did, for whatever reason. Then you're playing poorly. It's harder. You have to be very mature that when you're playing poorly, especially on the offensive end, which we did. We had 4 points at the 10-minute mark or something like that, right? You're playing that poorly offensively, and then to dig deeper defensively is that takes some real maturity. And so that was one area that I think we didn't answer the bell, was when we got off to such a bad offensive start that we really laced them up tighter on the defensive end and made it happen. So yeah, I just think we didn't compete that way.
Yeah. Are you surprised at that? I mean, you do have a couple of new guys to the SEC, but you've got a lot of older guys too.
Yeah, I was surprised. I am surprised. I'm still surprised that was what it was. It wouldn't surprise me that we went 2 for 19 from 3, right? It wouldn't, or worse. It wouldn't surprise me that we didn't adjust to a couple of the unique characteristics that they have as a defensive unit. That wouldn't surprise me. It's the first time you play those. That wouldn't surprise me. But not fighting the way that we didn't fight today, that did surprise me. You know, it did surprise me. That doesn't anger me, but it did surprise me. We'll show a lot of stuff on the film when we see it. It's just situations where it's you versus that guy, and ability kind of sort of matters, but who you are as a competitor really matters in that one particular moment. And how many ever those that were in the game, we got the short end of the stick in those situations. So that was surprising.
At what point in the game, if you can recall, did you feel like the fight just wasn't there from your team? Was it like at any point in the first half or just a certain moment in the game?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I've been in a lot of games. You know, if I look back to Chattanooga, even multiple times a couple of times we played Furman, and you should have seen the exchanges between Tanner Bronson, my assistant, and myself at halftime in a locker room. Because what offensively we were doing, it just wasn't working. I think one time we had 18 points in the first half, but we did enough defensively that we were still within striking range. So I only make that point because I've seen that a lot. That's why they play 40 minutes. I've seen it a lot. So I'm always optimistic about the character and makeup of our team and how we'll ultimately respond, whether that's we needed to wake up, whether that was we needed to make an adjustment as coaches to what they're doing, whether that's just we need to relax, we need to calm down and play, whatever that is. And so, I don't know, I guess sometime in the second half it was like there wasn't pushing the button and the button, there's a disconnect. It's not, the lights aren't coming on still, which is a dangerous game to play, to flick the lights on and flick the lights off. And you know, so I don't know, probably sometime in the second half.
David?
Lamont, this isn't the first time you guys have started slow offensively. I mean, I'm sure if there was a magic answer, you'd probably already done it by now, but what can you do to really force this? We cannot keep going on these long runs where you just don't score anything?
Yeah, I mean, we've looked at a lot. I mean, it's interesting because there's different ways. Okay, what does not scoring mean? Sometimes not scoring means you're not making shots, right? Well, it always means that. Well, it doesn't. Sometimes it means you're turning the ball over. So that's 10 possessions in the first half that you don't even get a shot. Like there's no shot that you get up. So, and we've had a variety of different ways that it's been struggles to score. You know, sometimes it's been that we got some good shots, we generated good stuff, and we didn't make them. Other times it's been we can't throw the ball to the guys in the same colored uniforms. That was the case today. You know, it's a good question. Yeah, that's why everyone always has to be ready, because if you make a move here or this guy's going to play more minutes or less minutes, guys have to be ready. But even we got some guys in there and got some opportunities, and you know, a couple other guys didn't play well. That's what's interesting to me is that how shooting is contagious or playing well is contagious. And in reality, these are independent. In some ways, they're connected in that if you're doing bad things offensively, my shot quality might suffer. So it's hard for me to play well. But in reality, you can shoot poorly and I can shoot well. I mean, I'm not going to be affected by you, but it just seems that things are connected versus somebody else saying, I'm going to do these things that's going to help us right now. And then anybody else who wants to jump on board, you start doing it too.
Anything else for Coach? Appreciate
Yes,
it.
yeah.
John,
real
sorry.
quick. When things aren't going great offensively, I guess we talked a lot coming into the year about Arden and how he could be really good on that offensive end. Do you look at maybe throwing a guy out there who doesn't have a whole lot of run, but you feel good about offensively, at least in some ways?
It's hard, you know. It's hard because there are so many other things. As I mentioned, our offensive first half And last year against these guys in the opener was an abomination. I mean, it was hard for me to watch it. But because we also could get stops, we could rebound the ball when it was done, we worked our way through that stuff, right? And we were able to do that. So it's hard to inject a person into a scenario when they haven't been in that scenario much for one thing, and then if that doesn't work, well then what does that look like, you know? And in some ways, some of Cam's minutes look like that to some degree, right? Okay, you have some struggles here or there. He got backdoored for a layup on one play, but he made a good cut and dunked on the one. So I think in trying to bring him along, it's like, all right, let's do this. Cam does these things. He can provide some explosive athleticism. He can attack the rim some. He can, but you miss a pull-up jumper. You do a couple of things. You make a couple defensive mistakes, and then it's like, if the offensive side is not working out, then you are at risk defensively. So it's hard for a guy like Cam, who has played consistently double figures minutes. That's extremely hard to try to go to a guy like Arden without trying to bring him along to practice first, which happens sometimes.
And I don't know if we'll speak to you before next week's games, but this one was a tough one. 2 top 5 teams next week. Like, what's the urgency like for you guys as a coaching staff to try to get this thing pieced back together before 2 really big games next week?
My urgency is the same for every single game. Every single game. This is an 18-hole story. It's an 18-game story. And at some point you'll look back and say this is what we did or this is not what we did, right? So I don't think there's one bit more urgency than had we lost by 1 or had we won by 7. For me, as the coach, there's not one bit more urgency. It's a good team. It's the next game. We're as motivated to be 1-1 in the conference after the next game at the same level of motivation that we would have to be 2-0 had we been 1-0 after today. So no extra urgency. We're very urgent in everything that we do, so no extra sense of urgency whatsoever, I would say, honestly. They happen to be really good teams, but all the games are going to be against really good teams.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you.